Hi everyone, welcome back to another pixelart time lapse. This will conclude the last of our fall theme, and I decided that due to this comment suggestion, I would try to do some sort of delinquent. Let me see, it said something about a mob boss, so that's where the idea came from. I thought, okay, maybe it can be the, what do you usually call it? The rich son, the prodigy. This is the best friend of the rich son. They're kind of their bodyguard, but mob boss idea, I thought it kind of would be the kind of like the comment says, the lackey, but in the same sense, the friend that's a loyal friend that you ride or die. And here I'm trying to do some sort of delinquent poses. This character is supposed to be the silly lackey, the silly side guy, the guy that's driving around, kind of the heart of the group. The son, the actual rich son, would probably be more serious and more studious, or maybe just more mean and serious, but this guy's a little bit more silly. He's got a little bit more goofy attitude, but he looks like a killer, was my hope. Or he's got a heart, that's what I wanted to go for. A mean looking guy, but looks like he doesn't bite too much, but until he does. Once I figure out a pose, either the typical, what is it called? The typical delinquent pose. I also do one that has the arm going over the shoulder with the sweater, the jacket. And then after that, I'm trying to figure out the head. This is a little bit tricky, as I imagine these are more so teenagers compared to the first character, the one in the red shirt. She's more, I'd say, maybe middle school-ish. So I wanted to go for something in between young and adult. The chef on the side, the one in the yellow shirt, I'll probably put her up somewhere. She's an adult, and then the butler is also an adult. So these guys are supposed to be teens, kind of they can drive, things of that nature, and this guy also does drive the son around. So he's the best friend that's always there for you, and I wanted to have a serious look but not too silly, and you can see, serious, and I didn't want to make him angry. I wanted to make him cool looking, and you can see here I'm trying a lot of different faces and messing on the eyes. One of the things was that the chef has the big glasses, so you can't see her eyes, and then the child has the big eyes, and you see him trying to just mess around with the eye type and trying to say, okay, what would be medium length? So eyes that are bigger than the adults, the butler guy, but smaller than the child's. I go here for 2 tall instead of, I think, 4 tall, which I made the child's. And it looks a little bit too mean, and if I add the red there, it kind of makes him look like he's glaring, and I remove that later, but I keep it for now. And I notice when I add the eyebrows, it kind of makes him look a little bit more sympathetic, and that's what I'm trying to go for here. Someone that looks a little mean, but not too mean. Here I'm trying to figure out what clothing I want, and I decide on maybe a white t-shirt, but I couldn't get the pose down. One thing is I tried to make these all work in the same world, a sort of collection, and one of the things was that they're all standing forward. The eyes are the same, the shading is the same. For example, the ears, they all have ears except for the girl whose ears are behind her hair. So I'm trying to make sure everyone feels like they work together, so I changed his pose so that it's facing forward. That's also why I didn't go with the squatting pose, since it wouldn't fit or match with how I have the world already. It would work for if everyone had different poses, but since they're kind of in a or T pose, a sort of default pose, I wanted to make sure he looked like he was in a default pose instead of kind of tilted and posed, as I imagine this is these are supposed to be game sprites you could put into a game after you add some animations and everything. So I'm just going around and trying to make sure everyone feels like they belong. And so here I change his pose to forward, and then I try adding a bigger feel to him. I want him to have that delinquent clothing, so that's where the t-shirt idea came in. T-shirt and maybe black pants, or maybe some sort of white, or not white, but red belt around his waist. That seems to be a lot of in the delinquent clothes I find, or they're either shirtless and have that red band. I think it's bandages that are around them, or they have bandages around them. If they're not white, they're red. Here I'm trying to figure out posing. I'm looking at different references, and I can show you some up there. One idea or reference that came to mind, which I am using here, is from a game called River City Girls. It's also a pixel art game, and it deals with a beat 'em up kind of high school setting, where it's 2 main characters that are 2 girls going off to save their boyfriends. But really, it made sense. The style I'm going for isn't beat 'em up, so the posing isn't the same, but the outfits, the colors, the shading is kind of similar I'm going for. So I'm using that reference as well, and I can show you up on screen somewhere also references to just the character look, and somewhere as well for the delinquent feel I'm going for. But I go for an overall forward-facing pose so that it matches up with everyone else. His hands don't necessarily have to be at his side. I just wanted to make sure he's looking forward. Could it be a pose that you could see him moving straight? If he can make it look like he's walking forward and one isn't behind, one isn't forward, feels about right. I'm messing around with his hand and seeing if I can make it look like he's holding onto his jacket that's behind him, and I kind of think I do it. It's weird. I'm trying to get less focus on details since I feel like I really do just focus a lot on it, and these are supposed to be quick, fun pixel art drawings I do weekly in order to A, get better at doing pixel art characters, and B, to have fun with it and make sure I'm still drawing but not too much. And you can see it here as well. I'm trying to mess around with the arms, the arm size, and the neck as well. Too wide works for the girl because she's smaller. 4 works for him because he's bigger. And one thing also is that female necks tend to be smaller. So I thought, okay, maybe I can make it bigger or smaller. I mess around with that as well, and I go with 4 wide like what I do with the chef. And here I'm just trying to compare and contrast and see, okay, does it look like he can fit into the world? And truthfully, I don't know. It's a little wonky. Here afterwards, I add a band-aid on, little band-aid, but as he patched as if he has been in a fight recently, but he's cleaned up. He's not in his rebel mode. After that, I then try to work on his hair, and you can see I messed around with a few hairstyles, but I want a more rugged, wild look while also still feeling approachable. I tried a few different styles, and I want it to be a very spiky hairstyle, and you can see here I'm trying to see if I can have that, but it's tricky. I use references here from Pokemon. I'm just looking at how they do their hairstyles, and then I choose some colors for their shading, and I go around and I try to have a spike on top and a shade underneath, and I go around and I'm trying to keep that in mind. What part of the hair is the top? What part of the hair is the bottom? How can I make it look more like a spiky silhouette? You can see here it looks very flat, so I add a little bit of volume to it to make sure it looks like it's round and pointed. I'm going around his hair and I'm trying to keep in mind, okay, where can it be spiky? And if it's spiky here, where else would it be spiky? I try adding more shading inside the center of his head. I didn't like how it looked, so I removed it, and I'm just trying to figure out, okay, maybe I can add some tips and points, and I like it. I feel like it could be a style, maybe more delinquentish look, and then maybe if he had like a fancy one, his hair could be slicked back, and then he has that debonair look, but for now, he's more rugged because he is that delinquent. This is more, I would say, maybe his school clothing, so he's approachable, but maybe his more delinquent look would be a little bit more wild. So you have the wild, normal, and the formal. I feel like it'd be fun. Here, I'm trying to mess around with the face. I feel like it's really long, but after kind of copying and pasting, putting them beside each other, I think the long one fits better, making him look older. I want him to look older, but not too older. And I feel like this was the right medium. After that, I add an outline, and then I go in and I'm now trying to figure out the arm, and this was really tricky as I wanted his arm to look like it was going back in space, and it kind of breaks that rule I had that was flat, but I thought it still fit, and I thought it was still okay, and how I just have it no outline and just one shaded color to help feel like there's some volume. It would be volume? No, perspective. I think perspective. So it looks like it's going back. There's front and back. It does this in River City Girls' World well, and also in Pokemon Sprites. I'll probably put them somewhere there, where you can see if the legs in the back or the arms in the back, it's a different color. So it shows clearly what's in the front, what's in the back. I only do the arm in the back because it's just one part of his body. I don't do the whole half side of his body like I initially thought I would with his arm in the back and leg in the back. I just do this arm in the back to give it a little bit of definition. I say definition, I say space, but just perspective. You have one arm forward, one arm back. It adds, I think, a bit of a pop in his overall silhouette, which I'm trying to maintain. Here, I always have trouble with shading. It's another reason why I do these pixel art drawings. I'm trying to keep in mind, okay, these are big baggy pants, so they probably have lots of shade in the bottom. Here for sneakers, well, I try to make them sneakers. I don't know how I do well. I'm not very good at shoes. I tried to have the white top that usually sneakers have, or is it Converse, the shoes that have it, where it's just like a white round area. After that, I then go back in and I'm trying to figure out the shading on the shirt. This is, again, shading, folds, clothing. It's always so tricky. After that, though, I go around for his face, and now I'm just trying to add the ears to make sure he looks like he's in the world. I'm always worried about the height of the head, the wideness of the head, but here, I don't think I can make his head any narrower just because of the spaces beside the one pixel between his head or his eyes and his hair. After that, I then shade in add a colored shade for his hair to make it not look so harsh. And I'm just going in and making his eyes different, trying out different directions, saying, okay, does this make him look softer? Does this make him look meaner? What makes him look a little bit meaner? What makes him look a little bit softer? I mess around with his smile and his definition of the just overall, okay, does shading this in for his eyebrows make him look meaner? Okay, it does, and it's not mean, this is more so just a relaxed pose I'm trying to go for. So I keep it, and then I try shading in the jacket. And that's where it brings us to now. And then after this, I'm trying to say, okay, is there anything else I can do with this shirt? Can I pull it back a little bit? Can I maybe move it up some? It feels funny, but I think I end up going with this. It feels funny, but I don't know how to fix it quite yet. So I just keep it moving and keep it going and keep it as it is. And I'm just overall looking. I'm trying to compare and contrast and say, okay, does he fit? Kinda, sorta. And that is that for our Ricky delinquent best friend side guy that doesn't help the main guy. From there, the next part of the comment was a scraggly, hold on, let me see. A cat that looks like it was gotten off of the streets. Ginger cat, by the way, and I haven't drawn a cat before. You can see my first attempt here, and not only is it a cat, it's a scraggly looking cat that you got off the street and just maybe appeared home one day. So I'm trying to make him look as crazy looking as possible. I think I would have been a little bit too crazy, and it felt bad, really bad. But I could say I tried it at least. I wanted to name the cat Pumpkin in lieu of it being fall, and I wanted it very silly, very thin, and I'm trying to pull up references here and keep them in mind as I'm looking. Scraggly looking cats seem to have very wiry looking whiskers, either very thin or very puffy. They're very rugged looking by having very spiky and pokey, pokey fur. Here I'm trying to add that spiky pokey fur while also adding the ears, and none of it goes well. I try to keep the whiskers white, I try to have blue eyes, trying to just have a feel of cat, and it's not working out. So I take another reference and I'm looking, okay, this cat has a diamond shaped head. Let me start off with a diamond shape, and this one goes well, so I keep it, and I'm just trying to keep in puffiness, scraggliness, and ruggedness, and I add very thin mittens. You call them mittens? Paws when they're white, and everything else is green. And then I add very puffy ears and those wispy whiskers that I was talking about for the overall cat feel, and I like him. You know, he's a little silly guy, and you know, that was the hope here. It's not supposed to be too much pressure. Sometimes I feel like the best art is the silliest ones. You can see here I make the mouth eyes smaller, and I also add little teeth to poke out from underneath the mouth to add a little bit of silliness as well. And I ended up removing this. I didn't think it was too silly. Well, I didn't think it was silly enough. I felt like it would look more like a saber-toothed tiger. So I went back and removed the mouth, or removed the teeth. I kept the mouth. I kept the very silly mouth. Pumpkin is a good boy. After realizing that the outline for the whiskers was really bad, I just removed it altogether. Here I'm also trying to figure out, okay, do the eyes need to go up or down? And I just changed my mind with the whole outline, like you can see here. So I just replaced the whiskers with just regular whiskers, no outline necessary, as it felt weird to have the whiskers so thick. And despite the fact that everything else is outlined, I'm okay with overriding that rule just so it feels thinner, as if I had the outline, wouldn't feel as right. And you can see here now I'm messing around with the face and trying to say, okay, do I move it up or down? And you know, since this is a delinquent owned cat, Pumpkin's gotta have a spiked collar. So that's exactly what I do, and I take a second to laugh at my creation. I believe Pumpkin's very beautiful. If you don't agree, I just don't think you know what beauty is. Pumpkin is adorable. Look at him. That's about that, though. We have Delinquent and his adorable cat that is completely disease-free. Pumpkin right here, probably here. So what do you think? That'll be it for this. What is it? The seasonal character change. We'll start up a new one now for winter. Some sort of, I don't know yet how I want to do it, but it's a new chapter, and we'll do it for the end of December. So 4 other sprites that we'll do and see where we get. Aside from that, though, leave ideas for December theme or Christmas theme ideas in the comments below for characters. And with that, thank you for coming, thank you for joining, and thank you to Colonel for being a Patreon member of mine. On there, I have additional time lapses of pixel art I've done, as well as files to some pixel art I've done in the past as well. With that, I'm going to leave you with a silly little automation. And have a good day, and good holiday, and good Thanksgiving, since this comes out on Thanksgiving. Okay, bye-bye.